I think we'll dive straight in and say, hello, Laura, welcome. I was going to go with your opening line. Is it, are you a
Hi.
swimmer, a swimmer, or an athlete? Is that the how you open some of your podcasts?
Laura, yes, I'm probably at the moment a bit more of a dipper, but I'm a swindler more than anything. I have got no swimming pedigree when it comes to technique or anything like that. I have done precisely one event, which was last year, and that was only because my swim buddy kind of nagged me into it. So we did the North Keswick swim last year, which was the first time that event has been run since the 1960s, where you swim from Inverness to North Keswick and back, which is supposed to be a little over a kilometre, but with the tides, it was nuts. We were in the water a little bit longer, but that is as good as I think as it's ever going to get for me. I have no interest in being a more serious swimmer or an athlete. It's just not my
not your bag.
Not really, no.
So like in terms of like the podcast and stuff, where did that start then? Where did that come from?
The podcast had come from the fact that I've been an outdoor swimmer my whole life, and I had never managed to persuade any of my friends to do it. I was very much a kind of solo outdoor swimmer. I didn't have any family who swam. In fact, quite the opposite. My family were very anti-swimming. And I just always went by myself, and I lived in the West Glasgow up until a few years ago, and my nearest spot was Loch Lomond, and that's still where I swim fairly regularly. And I used to go up there, and I would never see anybody else in the water who swam like me, who literally just got in for the fun of playing in the water. I might go for a bit of a poodle up the beach. There is an old pier under the waterline, about half a kilometre up the beach at Duck Bay. So I used to swim up until I bumped into one of the old posts, and then I would swim back again. But it's a heads up breaststroke. And I saw the triathletes. There was a triathlon club up in North Glasgow. And I was too scared of them, to join, because they were so serious, and they went and did times and things like that. And I was like, I can't. I was so overwhelmed by that idea. I was just like, oh no, they're proper swimmers. They're real swimmers. They're not like me. I'm just paddling. And then it was really after the first lockdown, which came at a kind of odd time, because I had a new daughter who was just 6 months old when the first lockdown came in up here. So I really noticed very little difference. The whole world was going slightly insane, and I was just sitting in the house the same way I had been for the previous 6 months, not going anywhere. And now at least I had the joy of not having to have visitors or the pressure of going anywhere. And my first swim after that kind of 3 months of lockdown, I went up to the beach at Duck Bay, and there was just hundreds of people. And they were all, it was mid-July, it's usually a bit busier, but there were so many swimmers, not just people out for a walk and looking at the water, but out there. And I was like, sort of swam out to the boys and turned around and looked around, like, where did you all come from? I've been out here for 10 years. I've never seen somebody just getting in the water to play. And they were everywhere. And I was like, right, I've got to get to the bottom of this. And it's kind of a joke that my husband and I have had for years, of sort of going, if you had a podcast, what would it be about? And I went home that day and I said, I've found it. I'm going to find out who all these people are. Because, like I said, I'm not a proper swimmer. I'm not athletic. I have no background as a swimmer. I don't really have the language to talk to athletes. As you will tell from the podcast episodes where I've actually interviewed athletes, I don't really know how to talk about swimming as a sport. But the joy of water, yeah, I can get on with that. So that was just like, right, who are you lot and where have you come from? So I just started getting in touch with the people I was meeting. The first handful of podcasts are all people that I met kind of locally who were new to swimming. And then when I kind of discovered sort of the online community that I was kind of tapping into to promote it, I was just like, oh, right, there's lots of kind of what we would call a well-kent face, like kind of famous dippers or famous swindlers or whatever. And I was like, right, I'm going to tap in and find out how you're doing this. And that's sort of the path that I've been plodding, is just kind of like, oh, you're interesting. This thing that you're doing on Instagram, or this project you're doing, that I find interesting. So these are the people that I annoy until they come and sit on Zoom with me and chat.
Yeah, and that is the real joy of the internet, and the proof in the pudding that there is stuff about. When you're in that red mind, it's not a really, really bad thing. It's just that in it too long, it is a bad thing. But yeah, it sort of feels like a similar journey to some of the stuff that at Bluetonic and doing these catch-ups. And that's what's sort of led us to you, really, is that you know, like I know Jane said a minute ago that she'd listened to your podcast, and then Rachel, one of our ambassadors, has been on there. So it was literally people like, Scott, you're gonna have to get Laura on here. So it's just so nice that we can reach out and find you, and then you've agreed to come on and stuff. So just like taking things back then, so like through childhood, have you always had that relationship with the water? Have you always, even though it's a weird thing with swimming, isn't it, that you don't, like you just said, you don't, like with running, you get the walking, you get the you get the walking, you get the jogging, you get the more serious runners, and the absolute athletes, and that's always been very visible. And it's only since lockdown, I think, that it's this awareness that you can have that almost jogging or chilling out experience in water. But yeah, back from the beginning, sort of, what was it like through life growing up in relation with water?
I've always been the kind of person, as a tiny child even, where if I could see water, I want to touch that, you know what I mean? Like my mom and I were joking about it the other day, because my toddler is now the same way, that she was just like, all I ever needed to do to entertain you was to put a basin full of water in the back garden, and hours would pass, just passing water hand to hand. I grew up in Edinburgh, which is a very beautiful, very tiny city, but right from the city centre, because it's on such a steep hill, you can see the river to the north of the city, from most places within the middle of the city all the way down to Leith. So you always kind of had that kind of blue line kind of in your eye line. You could see it from my school playground. And my family are from the Western Isles, so I would spend, which is very far north and very far west from everywhere else in the UK. I came from my dad died when I was very young, so my mum didn't have a lot of help nearby in Edinburgh. So in the summer holidays, my gran would basically take me for 2-3 weeks at a time, just to let my mum work and get on with her life. And I had one older cousin who was still at home there, but she was 10 years older than me, so I didn't really have anyone to play with, you know. And I started going up there myself when I was in primary school, so maybe 8, I think. And my mum would take me to Glasgow Airport, and I would fly on my own, and my grandfather would pick me up from the airport in Benbecula, and that was me for 3 weeks. And I didn't really have any friends. They didn't like have toys or anything that a kid could play with, so I would just leave the house in the morning and just explore. And most days that involved just going to the beach, which is about a mile from where my grandmother's house was. And I remember I was about 8 or 9 one morning, and it was a beautiful, beautiful summer's day, and I got up really early and I ran to the beach, and the tide was in, and I just walked straight out into the water and went for a swim. And I thought, this is the best thing I've ever done. And it's maybe changing now, but certainly the culture in the Western Isles, when I was a kid, certainly when my mum was a kid, is you do not get in the water. It's a dangerous thing to do. Nobody learns to swim. My grandfather tried to explain it to me, that if you taught a sailor to swim, it would just give them hope they fell overboard. So nobody swam, because what was the point? If you landed in the water, you were dead. So you might as well just accept it. And that didn't scare me, I think, the way he thought it would. And certainly my mum couldn't swim, had no joy in swimming. She would take me to the pool in Edinburgh. Like, I learned to swim, but she didn't enjoy doing it. It was a chore she could pass off on literally any of my like aunts or uncles. Oh, you'll take Laura swimming, great, bye. And whenever we always went on kind of like camping holidays around Scotland, things like that. And if there was a loch or a river, I would be paddling. And my mum was always, get out the water, get out the water. She was just terrified that I was going to, I don't know, float away. And that was that kind of wee kind of voice on my shoulder my whole life, was just like, you're not supposed to be doing this. Get out the water, get out. But I was like, but I want to touch it. It's just so nice. And I always just felt better. And then when I was 19, maybe just 20, I went on my first holiday with my boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband. And we were driving. I had just passed my test. I had just bought my first car. And we were driving. There's a fabulous road between Inverness and Fort William. And I had never been down that way before. So I was literally just following the map and going to places I'd never seen. And I was just looking at this loch on the left-hand side of the road, and I could just hear that little voice going, no, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, hang on, wait, I'm driving. I can park wherever I damn well please. I can go paddling if I want to. This is my holiday. My mum isn't here. And if I want to go for a swim, I'm going to go for a swim. And my husband doesn't swim either. So yeah, I've got another one of those in my life now. But he at least will tolerate me getting out of the car and like striding out into a loch in my underwear because I haven't packed a kit. And from that moment, when I realized, I was like, oh my God, I'm a grown up now. I can do what I please. That was kind of when I properly started outdoor swimming. At some point at uni a few years later, I bought myself a wetsuit, and that's when I started swimming up at Loch Lomond fairly regularly. And that's kind of been it. It was always kind of high days and holidays. It was always the summer, because I mean, it's cold up here. The water it's chilly. Although I was in Loch Lomond last week, and it's nowhere near as cold as the river I normally swim in. I found out when I went on Monday. I was just like, James, that's a difference. But yeah, wasn't until I think 2017 was the first winter that I swam through.
Yeah.
And it was a horrible time. It was a kind of miserable year that we were having. And it's just quite, I'd been kind of miserable anyway. I'd been working in a job that was a job I really loved, but the people made it very, very difficult. And I'd left that to go to university to do a master's, and that hadn't worked out the way I had hoped it would. So I was kind of down in the dumps. And then at that point, I'd found out that I was pregnant, and I was delighted because at least that was something positive to be working towards. But unfortunately, we lost that pregnancy at 18 weeks. So it was just miserable, and I didn't really know how to deal with that. Like I'd got a job, just a retail job, just to pay the bills, and I went back to work after about 2 weeks after we'd had that miscarriage, and I didn't really know just how to deal with it. So I just kind of didn't for a while. And that was in the August, and there was one Sunday afternoon, we didn't have any plans in the diary. We weren't doing anything. We were just kind of going to work and then just kind of being a bit miserable. And my husband had said one Sunday, he's like, come on, why don't we go for a drive? We'll go up to Loch Lomond, take your wetsuit, we'll go for a swim. And it became a kind of a regular habit. And it was really helpful because I always felt like I was achieving something. You know, I'd go through the rest of the week, and I've always been somebody who's had lots of hobbies. So, you know, I write and I produce things, lots of different kind of creative things going around, and I wasn't doing anything. And I would look at a piece of paper and I couldn't just put my pen on it at all. But if I got into the water in October in Scotland, I felt like I'd achieved something. And suddenly I realized it was the middle of December and we were still doing that every Sunday. I was putting my wetsuit on, and then I Googled neoprene socks because you need those up here. And once I had kind of neoprene socks and gloves, that was me. I was just like, all right, well, I've got this far. It's basically Christmas. I might as well just keep going. So every Sunday we would drive up to Luss and I would swim down the beach, and then I would just feel a bit better for a couple of days. And yeah, it really became kind of a lifeline. Now, I will add that a few months after that, sort of in the following spring, I did go to therapy. I did actually deal with the problems that we were having, but it just took me a long time to work out how to deal with that. Water is good, but it is not a cure-all. But yeah, after that, I just kept going. And now that I'm a few years kind of down the line, we had lockdown and that was miserable. But through that process, I met my swim buddy. After all these years of swimming on my own, I've never ever had somebody who was into it. I found a woman in my village, a couple of years older than me. Her kids are a couple of years older than my daughter now. And we're just like, oh, you and me can go and do this. We can leave our children in the village and we can go just the two of us. And we have a really good gas and we put the world to rights and then we drive home. So it has, it's been really, really good from that point of view of just kind of, you know, meeting a new friend. And I understand there's a lot in the swimming community about building communities, about having big groups that go out for, you know, big swims and stuff, but I'm not particularly ready for that. I'm very happy with having my solo swims and my one swim buddy. I do know lots of other swimmers up here, but I don't organize anything with them. I find the pressure of having to organize things really stressful, on top of running a house and looking after a toddler and trying to make a podcast and all of the other things I'm doing. Like the idea of group admin for multiple people who all have multiple needs, trying to get different places at different times, like I can't deal with it. So I've got one person that it's just like, are you free? No, fine, I'll go by myself. It's that's kind of where I am now with swimming.
Yeah, no, that was lovely, and it resonated a lot with me around that. And the point you said about it took a long time. I suppose it might seem like a long time and stuff, but like there's plenty of people that have suffered trauma and stuff and have gone a lot longer without dealing with it. So I think, like, you know, you should pat yourself on the back that you recognize something, went to therapy and all that, because it's all us talking and saying that water's this amazing thing, and it is for part of people's life. It's one thing, isn't it, that's like comforting and all that kind of stuff. But me personally, I've had therapy, and I it wouldn't be enough just to go for a swim and me have been okay. You get what I mean? So it's like, yeah.
I mean, I don't actually think you could afford like the industrial levels of therapy that I need just to go along with like all the various little traumas that I've that we've gone through. But yeah, the water makes up for all of that other stuff. I can deal with little bits at a time, but it's an expensive old thing having to go through therapy. You have to pick your trauma and just fix one at a time.
Yeah, no, definitely. So that journey brought you to the podcast and stuff. So I just wanted to come back to that podcast because I'm sure a lot of people are really interested in sort of stuff. And I don't know whether I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but you've obviously interviewed all sorts of different people. But what's the have you got any favourites or any ones that, I mean, obviously you've got your local people that you started off with and all. I don't want to put you might bump into them, but yeah, what sort of people really stand out to you? And it's probably like you've got about 40, 50 children there, and you're like, I can't pick one of them, you know. But I'd just be interested in highlights and stuff like that.
There's like things that resonate with my own kind of personal interests. Oh, my internet connection's unstable. Good luck. So I've interviewed campaigners. So I did an episode and a half really about the Ilkley Clean River Group, who were going through the process at the time of getting recognised bathing water status for the River Wharfe in Ilkley, because they are slightly downstream of a sewage treatment plant. But it's a very beautiful part of the world. It's a very popular area in their town on a sunny day for families to congregate, and the kids will play in the water. And people were getting very sick, and they had done a lot of work as a kind of local, they started off as a wildlife interest group, looking into the problems that they were having in the River Wharfe, and they ended up having some rather big fights with their local water authority. But getting kind of into the nitty-gritty of that, of the actual process, because being recognised bathing water doesn't mean that you're fit to swim, that area is fit to swim in. It just means that it's assessed by the Environment Agency, so you have the data to explain why it's not a fit place to swim. Now, where it should be, but that's a massive issue. And I did that interview, or 2 interviews 2 years ago, and the problem has got considerably worse in the UK since then. So that I thought I was really pleased I had done that one at the time, just so that I had a good kind of understanding of the problem, kind of the sewage treatment issues that are happening. The other ones that really stand out to me are like, there's a couple people just told really good stories. There's a teacher from Fort William who used to teach outdoor swimming to his class, and he would take all of his first year high school students out, because they live in one of the most kind of wet, beautiful, wild and wonderful areas of Scotland. And he's just like, I know all these kids are going to be playing in the river or the loch, and not one of them has got the sense that God gave them, because they're 12. So he took them out, and he had a whole program while he was teaching at that school, teaching open water or swimming safety in outdoor areas. And that's probably, I was looking at stats the other day, I think it's probably the least downloaded episode. I don't know why people have seen that and just gone, nah, I won't listen to that one, but it's probably my favourite one, just because I found him so inspiring. I was just like, tell me everything. Where were teachers like this when I was at school? And that's not fair, I went to a really good school, but none of them took me swimming in a lake, so. And yeah, just some like people who are doing some really good work. Like Rachel's interview was great, because she works so hard to get swimming safety, kit knowledge, just little tidbits of knowledge explained so well that just are asked every day on the open water swimming groups and forums all over the internet. So how do I do this? And I'm like, just Google Rachel. She's already answered that question like twice. So yeah, things like that. I also really like I quite like creative people like Sarah Norcoy, who is up in Orkney, just wrote a wonderful book about the process of learning sea swimming up in the wildness that is the sea around Orkney, but also kind of the issues that she was facing in her life with caring for her elderly parents. And it's so beautifully written. So getting her to agree to come and talk to me when the podcast was only about 3 episodes old was that one felt like a bit of a win because she's just so good.
Was that what book was that?
It's called Salt on My Skin.
Oh, someone's just popped it in the chat there straight away. So yeah.
Rachel doing everybody's homework again.
Oh, it's Rachel, yeah. Oh, I'll have to try that one, definitely. No, that sounds lovely.
It's a very slim volume and it's very, very, very quick to read. But it's so lovely. It's so well written.
Yeah, oh, that's beautiful. And what about sort of future guests and things like that? And
yeah, there's a few people that I'm trying to kind of track down. I'm really hoping to get somebody. I'm kind of been, nobody's confirmed at the moment. I've just got a few people who are going, yeah, maybe later.
you maybe need to keep that top secret, don't you? I don't know. It's the drama.
I do want to keep it top secret, but I also don't want it to become like a pressure from someone. You know.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to. I don't just. Yeah. I don't answer that question.
I'm like, okay. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping to have somebody who organizes swimming events, and I am talking at the moment to somebody who's an open water swimming coach as well. So I'm kind of hoping to get them on fairly soon. And I'm also talking to somebody who, she's an artist, but she applies her designs to swimwear. So I'd really like to talk to her about swimwear and that kind of process as well. So that's what I'm aiming for right now. I do have bigger ambitions, but it's very difficult to kind of pin them down, particularly when, you know, you've got a 3-year-old who will take a day off nursery at 0 notice when you're trying to get some work done. So yeah.
And when we caught up for a chat, it was nice, and I know the picture and stuff that you go down to Whitby, where I was born, don't you? Your partner's got a relationship with Whitby, hasn't he, as well? So
my husband's family are from Whitby. They still have a sort of some relatives and things down there, so we can get a wee weekend in Whitby. We were there just before Christmas.
Yeah, did you get in?
Yeah, it was lovely. My best friend from school moved down to Yorkshire as well, so it's only about 2 hours drive for him. So we were there for a couple of days, and him and his wife came over, and we just went for lovely long walks on the beach because the well was mental. And I got down to the beach one day and I'm like, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, it's going to be great. And I walked into the water and I'm like, oh no, these waves are higher than me, I have miscalculated, I need to leave. Because I'm not a regular sea swimmer, I get a bit jumpy with, not jumpy exactly, but just looking at the waves going, nope, no, it's too big, it's taller than me, I'm a very tiny woman, I'm only 5 foot, so I'm just like, no, I don't like it. I'm going to get swept away.
Well, one thing that really resonated when you were talking, though, was what I'm jealous of is when you're swimming in places like Luss at Loch Lomond, and I've been up there and spent some time around there. It's incredible. And one thing I've Googled a little bit of, I haven't done a massive load of research, but I've got this thing about, is there a bigger impact of fresh water than there is with salt water? Because you think about the primal mind, like surely when you found fresh water, you would relax even more because it's a source of keeping you alive, But everyone talks about the sea so much, like everyone talks about the sea and that kind of.
I think there may be kind of pluses and to both. I mean, the fresh water, for a start, it's colder.
Yeah.
Like particularly where I swim. My daily swim is not far from my daughter's school, and it's quite a narrow river, and it's freezing right at the top of a hill, and it's so cold. And then I might maybe go to Loch Lomond where, yeah, it's chilly, but it's not like that. So I think there's that, but then you get the salts where you get all these different minerals from seawater, and that's really good for you and your skin as well. So I think you kind of get the pluses from both. Chop it up a little bit.
No, and one thing we've sort of been asked, it's bumbling along, but the Scottish government are doing some research on why people from people in struggling in areas of sort of identified as need through the you know, like how they would identify poverty through free school meals or something at a primary school, doing some research in why people like that don't engage in coastal activity as much, and how could the government help that happen, which is quite nice when you think about, I don't want to get into politics too much, but in this country I can't imagine anybody ever doing any kind of study at a government level into something like that. People don't tend to care. So we've been sort of asked to look at that, and I just feel like Scotland is almost like the blue mined capital of the world. It's got more fresh water than anywhere in, you know, enough to, I don't know why this stat exists, and it's a worrying stat because somebody has actually written it down, enough to supply England. Why you know, not even Scotland? I read it somewhere and I was like,
oh, you
what?
know why. Sorry, I've taking the politics
right,
out.
no wonder some people in Scotland want devolution, if that's some kind of plan long term. But yeah. But yeah,
no,
it's
just there's more fresh water in Loch Ness than in the entirety of England and Wales put together. So we're a very soggy place. I mean, it's been lashing it down for 3 solid days here. My back garden is currently welly boots only. We live in a very soggy country. There's plenty of opportunities, but we are very, very lucky. Particularly, I mean, I've done a little bit on the podcast about access rights in England and Wales, because in Scotland we are free to swim wherever we like. We have a policy called the right to roam, which means that as long as you are accessing on foot, by bicycle or horse, because, you know, that might be a thing, but as long as it's non-motorized access, you can go anywhere you like. The idea of private land doesn't exist in Scotland the same way. People would like it to, particularly gamekeepers, but I'm not saying it's through, but the law is on the people's side when it comes to walking, hiking, swimming in Scotland. So if you see any particular puddle, you can have a go at it. Doesn't mean that all ponds are swimmable, but particularly when it comes to maybe a clash with an angling club or something like that, the law very much states that you own the fish, you don't own the water. Other people have the access. Whereas if you compare it to the access rights in England, I think, was it 3% of what open inland water in England is accessible for swimming? It's shocking. And all of the other areas where you might think that would be nice, the land ownership laws are nuts, and nobody agrees on what they are even. So how you guys go about it, I don't know. We are quite lucky in other ways in that the Scottish government is more supportive to people doing things. So for example, everybody under 22 has a free bus pass. Everybody over 60 has a free bus pass. So people, you know, young people, pensioners, they can go places. That might be for want of a bus service. Certainly living around here, we're not exactly blessed, but you can travel around in Scotland maybe a little bit more affordably. And yeah, like you're saying, things like sort of free school meals and all of that kind of thing. There's a lot of subsidies available just to help people who maybe don't have the means to get out and about. And if you've ever been up to Luss on a sunny summer's day, people definitely take advantage. The place is heaving. It's wonderful. I mean, it's awful if you go there in the winter and you're used to having it to yourself and suddenly you're having to do, but it's wonderful from the point of view of everybody getting out.
Right, well, we've come to that time where I've got to go and sort my kids out for a little bit. It'll only be a few, and I'll pop back in. But I'll just create some rooms. Please have a chat. We've never had any problems with any of the rooms, but, you know, just be respectful to each other and all that. Swimmers are the friendliest people in the world. I don't even need to say that, really, do I? Yeah, just please, like, meet people. There's people from all over the world here today, obviously, and people around the UK. So just have a chat, and I'll pop in and say hello into the rooms and all that kind of stuff. I will just say that I forgot to say, and Jane did remind me about some of the things that we do that do raise us a bit of funds. I think our Awaken the Mind Blue Challenge is still there if people want to do it. It's not particularly expensive challenge. It costs £5 and you will get a badge. We don't ask for evidence of you completing the challenge, but I don't know if any of you guys here, can you give me a wave if you are doing it, if you've got your cameras on? Anyone here that is doing it?
Can I hide in shame?
Well,
I don't know that I've heard of this, so how can we find out about it?
it's on the Bluetonic website. It's also on the Bluetonic Facebook group. But it's basically, Rachel wrote the challenge, more or less. Well, we all did, didn't we? But Rachel came up with the main bulk of it. Jane did the organisation. I came up with a bit of a concept that looks nothing like my original idea, which is a good thing. And it's about people getting out and about by the water, in the water if they want to, or even on the water. And it's, when we say challenge, it's like, you know, it's a journal, and people, we've got a private group that if any of you want to join, we can put you in there, where people share their experiences of writing the journal, and some of it swims, some of it's just like, Rachel, give us some examples, because I know Rachel's really good on these, but might be cracking ice in a puddle or something like that might be a really simple one.
Yeah, it was, I don't know if you can hear me, my sound's been funny this evening. So the challenge is about being in, on or around the water, and under each section there's a whole load of ideas. I think we've got 60 suggestions of activities you could do. So from something like bird watching and finding out about your local area, to litter picking, whether you're on the side, you know, whether you're walking a canal towpath or whether you're swimming around or kayaking, going on a boat trip, which might just be a ferry trip, or it could be having to go in a rowing boat, skimming stones, all sorts of things, just basically hanging out by the water and trying to give a few ideas to give people, I guess, the freedom to do something other than feeling that they have to get in the water. So the idea was to make it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. And then the idea of journaling it just being to look back on what it was you took from the time in the water. So then if maybe at times get a bit tough over the winter, or you kind of lack your motivation, you have a little look back through the journals and go, do you know what, actually, I'll just go and pick another one. Because we've even got some up the way you could do, I think Jane came up with some ones where you can do some water-based activities at home. So if someone is poorly, they can still do some water meditation and some other bits and bobs they can do without even leaving the house. So it was all of that kind of stuff. But the links, I'll try and find a link and stick it into the chat.
Rachel, I do a thing when I go to the beach now after me swim, even if I haven't been in. I take a hot drink and I have this hot drink meditation. It's a 1-minute meditation, and it really calms all my anxieties down 100%. So I could share that sometime if you would like.
Yeah, that might be something we can add in next year.
I know it doesn't sound much, but that 1-minute meditation is a lot for somebody, even if they take a hot drink with it.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to have a meeting about the Awaken Your Blue Mind at the end of March, I think, aren't we, Rachel? And me and Rachel will probably host it. And we just want to involve people in designing something for the following year. And then, you know, we want to make it as accessible as we can to people, as cheap as possible. Any funding that we get, we're looking to reinvest. I didn't realise how expensive it is to actually run a charity until we started, and we're getting to the point now where we need accountants and things like that to put our figures through, and it's like that's £500-600. So it just all helps us just run the charity, and when we put funding bids in to do the choir or to run Swim Safe, we're not allowed running costs, which I never realised when we set up a charity. A lot of the funding pots don't give you running costs, so that's the kind of thing that it helps us with. and stuff like that. And the only other thing that you could, I mean, you can make a straight donation. There's donation buttons on our website and donation buttons on our page anyway. You don't have to do anything, but we like to give something back if people are giving something. So it's just less than, I think it's just less than £10 for a swimming hat, which I know is quite expensive for a swimming hat, but we've got some Bluetonic swimming hats. Jane would call them iconic, I think, and I would as well, actually.
I think I definitely need one because I haven't got one of them either. I am terrible, sorry. But what I think I've mentioned before, when my animation cartoon comes out, because when I talk about my journey, I talk about mental health rather than all the conditions within, like, what I have as well, that I would promote Bluetonic on the events.
Oh, wicked. That's brilliant.
So
thank you.
I think I might have mentioned it before, but if I haven't, well, that's what my plan is, and I definitely plan to invite like people along, because there's only going to be one viewing before it goes on, and then it'll go around all the film festivals for a year. So it'll be a year before people get to see it. So there will be some invites because I'll be allowed so many people to come to this viewing up this way. But it's meant to be hush hush because you're not meant to really have the viewings, and so. But I tell everybody, so I'm not very good at the hush hush because so I do want to promote yous because yous obviously a massive help, and I feel privileged being an ambassador for yous. I was so overwhelmed. No, I just don't think I've done much yet.
And giving you time up, Kathleen, it's lovely. So I'll just bring it back to Laura though, because I didn't want that to detract from the ultimate star of tonight, and I really want you guys to get a chance to ask her questions if you've got questions or offer. You might have listened to a podcast and it sparked something. So we'll just sort of open things up. So if people want to sort of one at a time unmute and ask a question, feel free. If you've got your cameras on and I see you waving or raising your hand on the thing, I'll also come to you or whatever. But yeah.
Laura, I saw that on social media recently you've been looking to get sponsorship for the channel for your podcast. Have you had any good leads on that yet?
I've had a couple, yeah. Basically, I don't know how many of you listen to other podcasts regularly, but you know that most podcasts will sell advertising space at the start, possibly in the middle, and at the end of their thing. And up until fairly recently, I've not really done that. But running a podcast is surprisingly expensive, and I really need it to start covering its costs. So I am hoping that I can do that, but I don't want to straight away just join. There are kind of advertising mechanisms that you can add in, which will be just the same adverts that are on the bulk of all the other podcasts that you listen to, and a lot of them will be for brands that I have no use for or no time for or don't agree with, and that's not how I want it to run. I run Wild Wimmin with a kind of environmental angle to it. There's always a kind of people and planet kind of way of doing things. So I'm trying desperately to get some brands to buy some advertising space that are people that I actually want. I had some success last season. The last couple of episodes were sponsored by Sea Change Wines. I was in the wine industry before I went on maternity leave, so I know about wine, and I was able to approach them and talk to them that they do wine that's kind of plastic-free packaging and all sorts of just quite handy little innovations. I'm like, right, that's the kind of thing I'm interested in. So those are the kind of people that I am approaching. I have approached a few companies that I really like, but the problem, I think, with being a kind of small independent concern is that I'm interested in small independent concerns and they don't have any marketing budgets. So a lot of them are like, yeah, no, we're not going to spend money on that. And with a lot of what I do going through Instagram, people, I think the initial assumption is maybe that you're angling to be an influencer, and they're like, yeah, sure, you can have some stuff. And I'm like, no, because a free basket of soap or whatever does not pay the hosting fees. And that's what I need. So
Have you,
I am trying that before I...
Oh, there's a bad line there.
I think we're losing her there. I
might
was
be
going to
something-
suggest I'll put it in the things, but I would suggest Kinkind as a possible one to approach, because they are putting out a lot of advertising.
And then just hope that people will join the Patreon to get an advert-free version of it. So it's
Laura, you're,
at
I don't know,
crossroads just
Laura,
now how much work it's going to be to do it the way I want to do it, versus the easy way of letting, you know, normal corporate people deal with it for me.
Laura, just in terms
You
of
know,
your, oh, good, yes, if you turn the camera off, it might work. I think your bandwidth has
Yeah.
gone
Have I?
a little bit.
You seeing something, Rachel? Oh, sorry.
Is it slowed down for anybody else, Laura's feed?
I have taken that suggestion. I have emailed them. Oh dear, it's my internet.
Yeah, probably slowed down. I couldn't hear.
Terrible
Right.
feed. Maybe if everyone switches their camera off, it'd be better.
I'll turn mine off then as well. We'll fumble around in the dark. Hold on.
No.
I was just
Sorry.
I was just going to say to Laura that I've popped something in the chat for her, but Kinkind might be someone that she might want to contact, because they seem to have quite the marketing budget, and they, I would say, probably align with what she's thinking about. So I've put the link. I've sent you the link, Laura, if you can hear this.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yeah, I have approached them. I am yet to hear back, so we'll see.
Okay.
Well, that's working way better, Laura. It just went a bit funny for a little bit, that's all. So the camera thing has worked.
Fantastic.
But yeah, anybody else got any other questions for Laura, or?
Laura, it's Kathleen. Hi. I would love to do podcasts, but I've got no idea where to start. Would I be able to have a chat with you about it at some point in private?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things. It's not that tricky. There's a few free tools that are available to help you with it. So and if you can do sort of the way I do the interviews over Zoom and use the audio recordings for Zoom. So it's not too bad. My ambition with the podcast was always to do the interviews in person, and just the last 3 years has been. That's not really, other than my first episode, I've not really had the opportunity to do that. So that's kind of something I would like to do, but that involves more equipment than I.
Yeah, I can imagine. I did I didn't actually got a gift of a podcast mic, but I don't know how to use it. I just look at it and think, what the hell? Excuse me.
I mean, I have to admit that stuff's not my forte either. I am very lucky to be married to a desperately patient man who is he's a software engineer. He's very techie, and his side obsession is recording. So I am really lucky because I have got very little idea of how all of this works. So yeah, I am lucky to have on-hand help.
Oh, that's brilliant. I don't have my son's quite techie, but he's not that tech. He doesn't like to help us there actually. So I've got no hope.
That's just a normal kind of parent-child dynamic, though, isn't it?
He might be
I have
26.
no patience when it comes to doing anything for my mum. And
Me too, actually. I get that.
yeah, she doesn't deserve that. I mean, that woman taught me how to use a spoon, and I can't even, like, you know, sit with her for 5 minutes with her iPhone. I'm like, no, I can't.
Well, aren't we all the same though? Because we fit, like, your lives are filled with so much that we forget that how much they did for us.
Yeah. It does kind of help having a toddler on hand. I'm just like, wow, you did all of that for me. I did it all single-handedly. I mean, there's 2 of us in the house and I'm barely keeping it together.
I don't know how my mum managed with 8 of us.
Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, my mum was one of 7, I think. So I think she just kind of nods and smiles.
Yeah, I can imagine. But it's been amazing listening to you tonight. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah. The swim review on your channel, Rachel. Yes, anytime you like, darling. You tell me when you're up here and I will make myself free.
How are we all doing, guys? Anybody any other questions for Laura? Feels well. I think that it's about right, actually. We've been finishing some of them at about 8:30, so sounds like people are ready and stuff. But thank you very much, everybody, for coming along. Really enjoyed this evening, and it's been one that we've been looking forward to for a while. Just in terms of next guests that we've got on, we've got Mark Marsland on the 9th of February. He's a life coach and hypnotherapist. He's an author as well. He's got a book out, and I've seen him on quite a lot of the wild swimming, the open water swimming websites. I don't know if you've seen him. He's got tattoos. He does a lot around blokes' mental health and stuff, and a lot around using cold water therapy to get people in. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then a lady that came on to watch one of our guests, Rachel Whitfield, that was previous to Laura, Jill Lockhart approached us, and she's got a really interesting story. She's had a battle with cancer.
Wow.
And yeah, she's then gone on to like create this sort of community around getting active. She can't get in the cold water because of some of the stuff that she's got going on, but she does swim a bit. But she's really doing stuff around the power of water and wellness, so really like nicely knits in with Bluetonic and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to her coming on as well. So they're the other 2, and then I think we will have one other get together, which will be more about people that have been doing the Blue Mind, or people that are interested in the Blue Mind Challenge, the Awaken Your Blue Mind Challenge. So more details that will come onto our social media. Facebook's like the main one we've got stuff on, so if you can follow there, but you can find us on Instagram and Twitter as well. But thanks ever so much, everyone, for coming along. Thank you, Laura, for being an incredible guest. Yeah, hopefully we'll stay in touch, Laura.
Oh, yes.
And if you know anything about the charity that you fancy getting involved in, likewise, you're more than welcome. The ambassador stuff, you know, it'd be lovely if you wanted to get involved in any level like that, and stuff. So I'm sure we'll keep in touch. And yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. It's lovely meeting you all.
It's been lovely meeting you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Take
Really
care.
enjoyable. Bye.